safety. Okay. So this is, again, a fairly common sense set of topics, but we crank through, make sure that we bring a handful of different concerns to the top of our mind, and we're just going to go through the protocols that, as professional massage therapists, we use to keep ourselves and our clients as safe as possible from a broad range of external variables in our world. Okay. So, with sanitation, we are going to have some very concise habits, and just building them in as habits on the front edge is key. I know you guys are practicing that in your hands-on portion of class with Kumu Keikai. So why don't you give me what you've picked up so far about the habits of sanitation in your practice?
We put a fresh sheet on.
Fresh sheet every time.
For the client.
Yes.
After we're done, we take the sheet off and we clean the table with a sanitizer.
Clean the table, yes.
We clean the floor and any surfaces that we touched with our oily hands. We wash our hands between clients with hot soapy water or warm soapy water.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I use the nail brush.
Yeah, a nail brush.
And
helpful. Hot soapy water, cleaning our hands all the time. It's a great foundation. That's like the bulk of your day-to-day rhythm. Containing the sheets, issues of the sheets, contact points of the client, and also your own hand washing. So we're gonna wash hands before every single treatment. We're gonna wash hands after every single treatment. For a lot of medical professionals, the high frequency of hand washing can be really hard on the skin of your hands, but we who use a fair amount of oil in our regular practice get the benefit of constantly re-exposing our skin to coconut oil as well. So we get this nice protection, or whatever oil you're using. I know in here, it's pretty much coconut oil. I use coconut oil as well. You guys are using the like standard coconut oil that can be kind of hard, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's also possible to use the like liquid version. Exactly. The defractionated coconut oil is really nice for pump bottles. Either way, the chemical structure in terms of how it interfaces with your skin is pretty much the same. So that's great. When you wash your hands, you're gonna always give it a solid 30 seconds in order to get that cleaning action. You're using soap, you're using hot water. It's the same sequence that's posted in many bathrooms around the world, with wetting your hands, applying soap, spending some time with friction on the soap and water together, and then rinsing it all off and washing all the material that was on your hands and all the soap and all the water that you used to clean back down the drain so that you're in a fresh place. Then you want to dry your hands on a clean surface that is only used for hand drying. Some people will use the same towel throughout a day, perhaps, and that's okay as long as you're only using it to dry hands after thorough hand washing. Otherwise, paper towels are super efficient for rhythmic sanitary purposes. Since we are all in a style where we use our elbows a fair amount, we do need to make sure that we're going all the way up and over the elbows with every hand washing. And it's probably most efficient if you give yourself a solid like 30 seconds on the hands themselves and then another 30 seconds to get that complete material sweeping off of the forearms and into the elbows as well. Any questions so far? Okay, perfect. That makes it easy. So with that coconut oil, one of the benefits there is that it becomes very tactile. You're gonna know if you did a good job getting material off your hands and elbows or not, because the slip sensation of the oil itself will kind of help remind you. And so you get really rhythmic into that. Zooming out a little bit on the theory of hand washing, obviously we're wanting to address any viruses, bacteria, potential fungus, pathogens of any kind, and make sure that we're sweeping that all off. Something that is kind of interesting, doesn't necessarily change your approach or practice, is it's actually the friction itself that is the most effective in the sanitation. The soap allows that saponified texture where we're molecularly grabbing the material that we want to get rid of, and it'll help us get it off. But it is actually the movement of the skin against skin that's doing the most pathogen disruption, and you're actually like ripping that material. If you find yourself in a situation where you can't wash your hands, like if you truly can't wash your hands, you can't really keep practicing massage, right? But if you're camping or whatever and you are needing to decontaminate but you don't have access to water, simply doing the motion of fricative hand washing for about the same length, or maybe give it twice as long, will give you a really high rate of pathogen disruption as well. And so even if you can do the friction and then just rinse in water, this is a huge improvement over just moving on and staying contaminated for whatever reason. Okay, so that's good to know. The stuff that we don't want to have on us, obviously viruses. We all got a lot more familiar with the theory of viruses. Even all your clients will probably have a stronger grip than they did, say, 5 years ago, now that we've come through the pandemic experience together. Viruses basically have the capacity to insert their genetic code into other host cells. This is their main function. They're pretty small. And some viruses can perforate a barrier. So it can be possible for viruses to move through lower quality gloves at times. As opposed to bacteria, they're primitive cells. They don't have a nuclei, and they are larger, like substantially larger than bacteria. So any glove is going to pretty much effectively protect you. Any, personal protective equipment type glove is going to effectively protect you from bacteria. Fungi are another piece of our pathogenic world that we need to be safely distancing ourselves from. While lots of fungi are very useful and helpful to us, any fungi that want to live on your skin, we do not want to live on your skin. We want to be continually discharging them. So they're going to spread more through that mycelium function, and they need a certain amount of stability to establish. So when you do see people who have like athlete's foot type infections or whatever, that's usually going to be isolated to parts of their body that are not getting that much friction disruption relative to other areas. Around the toenails is a really safe place for yeasty or fungi kind of organisms to try to establish. And from time to time, we'll also be threatened by protozoa or pathogenic animals. So these are the larger potential infestations, all the way up to lice, down to scabies, which are mite. They're actually like an arachnid at core. And it's even possible to have various kinds of worms establish in or on the body. You'll sometimes hear ringworm. That's actually a fungi type organism, but recognizable for that. Generally, you're not going to see situations where like pathogenic animals or fungi or yeast are invisible. They'll be, the individual organisms may be invisible, but it will be affecting the body in a way that is pretty easy to identify and distance yourself from. So if you are working on a client that has obvious disruption in the skin that you are concerned may be contagious, invasive, pathogens of some kind, it is perfectly appropriate to decline treatment if you feel you can't contain the potential for risk there. It's also fine to ask clients to wear socks if they know that they have an active athlete's foot infection, that just keeping that contained inside their clothing will be pretty effective. Or you may choose to work through the sheet if you want to engage with their foot in spite of those problems with skin integrity. Okay. So each of these kinds of potential threats to our health, we're going to have lots of different opportunities to interrupt our own exposure and the potential of transmission from one client to the next by being really on top of the sanitation of our surfaces in the room. So we want to definitely do something that interrupts the life cycle of pathogenic organisms in between every single client. So that's where our changing the sheets, just taking that material and disposing of it for the time being, getting it laundered, and also wiping down the table really thoroughly. When you wipe down the table, I want you to be really conscious about the surface of the table. Of course, you have your moisture barrier material on the top of the whole surface of the table. However, you also have, if you have an adjustable headrest of any kind where you're reaching up under and you're working a lever, this is a contact point. If you have an armrest or any other features on your table where you yourself are touching it to get everything set up on each client, these things need to be fully wiped down, sprayed wiped down every time too. There is a recommendation for a ratio of bleach if you want to make your own disinfectant. And that's going to be a 1 to 10 bleach solution to be considered a real disinfectant.
1 part bleach, 10 parts water.
Yeah, that's right. 1 part bleach, 10 parts water, or 1 cup of bleach per gallon of water. If you make a gallon of bleach disinfectant, honestly, that's going to be super excessive because you're going to need to replace that solution every day. Bleach molecularly deconstructs over the course of 24 hours, and you're going to massively lose the efficiency of that solution. There are some more stable solutions that you might buy pre-bottled. And then this is the part where I always just get super obnoxious because I love the Force of Nature kit so much. I don't get compensated for this. I swear to God, there's no flow back to me, but we use that here in the school. We use that in both the front and the back of Dr. Jill's office because I love this stuff. I will show it to anybody that will give me the time of day, basically.
Where do you get it from?
So it is a kit, and it's a little bit expensive to kick off, but it is the least expensive long-term solution if you know you're going to be doing kind of constant sanitization, sterilization procedures. It's based on producing hypochlorous acid, so it's a really close relative molecule to chlorine bleach, but it has the benefit of being totally non-toxic, and the way that it deconstructs on a molecular level is basically it just turns into slightly acidic salt water. But you do have to make it yourself with a little hydrolyzation device where you're just putting in a pre-measured dose of a little bit of acid and salt into a basin of water, and it's going to charge it electrically so that it bonds in such a way that this hypochlorous acid is formed. You make it every 2 weeks. So it's unfortunately not a shippable product because it breaks down completely in the bottle in a 2-week period. But you can use that same spray bottle all the time. So that's one of my favorite little hacks in the massage therapy world. It is really gentle on surfaces. It's totally non-toxic, and it actually doesn't affect fabrics for the most part. Sometimes you'll have a fabric that's surprisingly delicate to all kinds of things, but it's not going to leave bleach stains in your material. So that is a wonderful little resource for keeping all those microbes and pathogens under control. You want to actually wipe off the material as well. So you're going to do the spray down and then use the paper towel, or I actually use washcloths that I have laundered with my sheets, so that I'm not producing that ongoing landfill waste product. Exactly. So you are welcome to devise your own system, choose your own products, and kind of create a rhythm that works for you, that's sustainable for you, but it does have to every time include full change of the sheets, full wipe down of any multi-contact surfaces. Other contact surfaces to be aware of is your water bottle. If you're keeping yourself in the treatment room staying hydrated, you're gonna need to hit that surface of the water bottle, anything that you touch during a treatment. So I really recommend basically like cups with straws that you can like lean into and just get your sip and not have to touch it and interact with it so often. It's really nice. And also your pump, if you've got your holster for your oil bottle, you want to hit that pump surface that you're drawing oil out of and touching every time. And again, that's like something so wonderful about always having coconut oil on your hands is you can tell what you touched, because anything that needs to be disinfected, you already made it a little bit slimy. So you flag that to yourself as kind of makes it easier on us than some of the other helping professions. So there's 3 levels of sanitization, cleaning, and disinfecting. Those are the 3 levels. Cleaning is removing debris from the surface of something. Sanitizing is using a product specifically. It needs to hit like a 99% germ termination. And disinfecting is when you clear that 100% pathogen elimination. So disinfecting can look like black light treatment. It can look like chemical treatment. And you have to clean that first in order to get to it, because obviously if there's particles of debris, those particles can be protecting pathogens that are less exposed to your chemical or mechanical disinfectant process. Other questions there?
So it's cleaning, sanitation, and then disinfecting.
That's right. Cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. That's not necessarily steps, that's just measures of how clean you made a thing. Oh. Material off of it is clean. Up to 90%, 99% of germs is sanitized. If you got that last percent of germs, you can call it disinfected.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about these disinfectants that you spray on something and it claims to be continually disinfecting something for 24 hours?
Yeah, that is that is chemically possible for the residue of a molecule to be like so environmentally challenging that the pathogens that land on it later are also very improbable to be successful. Something to consider though is if it's that toxic to the microbes, your cells probably don't like it that much either.
Yeah, isn't it going to be creating super germs and stuff like that?
Yeah, the idea of super germs, and specifically like we talk about MRSA, is the medication resistant staph. Um, and so that's basically when one strain of a pathogen is exposed to the same chemical often enough that it can kind of like evolve and select into being more resistant to those specific chemicals. We can usually come at it from a different angle. Like that strain's not going to be resistant to all chemicals. MRSA specifically is a huge challenge because in the hospitals, there's a constant influx of staph infection, various strains being introduced all the time. And the medications and sanitizers that they're using are pretty routine, and so you can get those exactly like super resistant strains that develop over time.
That's why it's important to physically remove the friction or whatever, the infestation of whatever it is, and then disinfect, and then sanitize or disinfect or both.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Another term that I'll throw in there really quick is the idea of an antiseptic. So this is specifically sepsis is what we're avoiding there. And so an antiseptic is specifically a chemical that can be put on skin or mucous membranes to damage the pathogen process. So that's more for your personal application. You're not going to put antiseptics on your clients generally. Although you may choose to use materials that do have some antiseptic qualities as part of your general practice. If you are mixing a little bit of tea tree oil or a little bit of eucalyptus oil into your coconut oil, that's going to give both you and the client a little bit extra protection, a little bit more buffer from potential infections. That's a personal preference. And of course, there's lots of different oils that can give you different benefits. That's a different course to become a specialist aromatherapist or essential oil worker. But absolutely, you can include a little bit of those very helpful materials into your practice.
Speaking of smells, what if your client comes in? I mean, a lot of people are not aware they have body odor.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
The client comes in and they are going to stink up your room. You know, how do you handle a situation like that?
Yeah. You personally can give yourself the option of a little bit more protection, just wearing a mask, maybe putting a few drops of lavender oil in your mask for your own benefit during the treatment. You can tell them that you don't choose to work on them unless they bathe before they come in. If you have somebody who's like ongoingly creating that problem, and like as awkward as that may initially feel, this is inside of your scope of practice to let somebody know what is appropriate in their behavior and their personal presentation in the treatment room. You are allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And you might be the only person in their life that is invested enough in them in that way to take that personal risk. You, of course, can use all of your sanitation tools on the room, the surfaces of the room. You can open up the windows. You can create more airflow to make sure that like lingering scents are minimized. And of course, classically, like if we really get stuck with a scent that we can't fully diffuse or remove for whatever reason, covering up a scent with something more pleasant to create that distraction and have your next client like not be able to identify, that's like at your discretion again, where you may or may not have a very sensitive person coming in next where the original smell or the smell that you try to cover it up with maybe not to your advantage, but you'll feel it out. Yeah.
So you handle it.
Yes. So we're keeping our rooms as carefully clean as possible. We're keeping ourselves as neutral as possible. And we have a few bigger overview ideas as well that we need to address on keeping our spaces really safe. If you have a specific event where an exposure risk goes up higher than normal, then you're going to want to take some extra time on your room. So this may be cases where somebody maybe scratches a scab open and now you have a blood exposure in your room, which would not at all be typical in our flow of practice to have all that much blood going on. You may also have people experiencing diarrhea or having different, like running the nose, like suddenly having just a sneeze event that exposes you to more of their body fluids than would be standard. So this is like a really appropriate time to just take extra time in between clients to get everything more thoroughly surfaced with your sanitation process as well. And you are always at liberty to end a treatment if there's a contamination threat that needs to be dealt with immediately. You don't have to give them 60 minutes of massage and make sure that their experience is normal in addition to dealing with that. That's, again, another piece that's at your discretion. So when you are addressing higher level contamination threats, it is wise to use personal protective equipment. So that would be putting on a mask, using some nitrile or latex gloves, possibly putting on an apron or even like repurposing a sheet over the front of your body to give your clothing a little more protection, or changing your clothing in between. And that's super smart, along with your toothbrush and your little nail kit, having an extra pair of leggings and an additional top to switch if you have some kind of contamination experience of any kind. Super helpful. That pretty much can cover our overall sanitation concerns. Have you guys used like eye protection or face shields?
No, not here.
Not in class, but in life.
In life, yeah, exactly. When this book was written, we had not yet had a global pandemic, and so it is pretty explicit about some of the stuff that we all ended up getting a more general exposure to. Being able to use those standard precaution proceedings where we're putting on gloves, wearing possibly gowns over the clothing, using a face or eye shield in addition to the face masks. And those are, of course, always you have access to that. Like if you choose to stock those in your clinic, that gives you a bit more variability to respond to events as they happen. If there were to be another pandemic escalation, we would be back in a position of having to choose, like, are we going to continue our practice? Are we going to use standard precaution resources, personal protective equipment at a higher level than we normally would? Or are we going to close down for a time until more information comes in? So that's just part of your responsibility to discern as you're moving through time and space as massage therapists. Okay? Beyond that, we covered our hand hygiene. We have respiratory and cough etiquette as a set of concepts that hopefully we all more or less got a grip on as fairly young children. But basically, your highlights of that is that if you have an active cough or sneeze coming up, you're experiencing that, then you need to, as much as possible, contain it with a tissue. If you can get it into your elbow, that's preferred over your hands. And after any significant sneezing or coughing, then you're washing your hands again. It's totally fine to stop in the middle of a treatment, and like, there will be days where you find yourself clearing your throat. Maybe you ate something spicy and it's still just a little irritated through your system. And you're absolutely allowed to step out to process your own self-care and restore your basic hygiene procedures. Wash up your hands, go up to the elbows, clear yourself out, you know. And I just say that because I have heard of students or like early practitioners who were so focused in on maintaining the client's experience of continuity and doing nothing distracting to their massage experience that they were like putting themselves through a fair amount of discomfort in order to kind of contain that. But like, just, this is your general permission. You can leave and go to the bathroom in the middle of a treatment. You can say, excuse me, I'll be right back, without explaining, or you can give them some brief explanation. All of this is at your professional discretion. Okay. I'm not gonna go too far down the hole on the specific contagious conditions. You guys are already familiar in concept with HIV/AIDS, hepatitis, tuberculosis. These are specific threats to our health that are more commonly blood transmission issues. And so the big lesson there is any blood contamination, any exposure to blood, you're going to treat with a higher level of seriousness than other body fluids. But realistically, like, treat all body fluids as potential contaminants and be thorough with them. There's nothing to lose from over sanitizing if you have set up your system to be rhythmic and habitually healthy. Just go ahead and do it again. Other concerns are the coronaviruses generally, MRSA we hit on a little bit, and colitis. That's a bacterium that's going to be diarrheal and has a little bit more kind of aggressive transmission potential. A norovirus, that's another one that is digestive conditions that can be highly transmissible. These are kind of the categories of difficulties that we're going to have to deal with on a society level. And so just staying aware of the potential of high transmission of any particular thing can help you stay on a more appropriate alert. Yay, we have a little bit more time and just a little bit more content. So let's cruise really quickly through general workplace safety. This is our broadest category where we're going to build in a sense of awareness about the potential of fall safety, tripping hazards. We're not going to run electrical wires unsecured across places where our clients have to walk back and forth. We're not going to put tripping hazards and obstacles in pathways. We're going to be really alert to fire escape routes and know where our extinguishers are, know what our plan would be in terms of fire safety, as you would do for any location that you are spending much of your life in. If there's more than a couple of hours in any given location, I hope you guys are kind of aware of your potential exit routes and where the supplies would be to deal with emergent situations. If you are running your own business, it is your responsibility to get super familiar with the requirements for your location as you're making decisions about purchases, and make sure that you're properly supplied for fire safety. and aware of electrical outlets, etc., same as you would normally be in your home or anywhere else. You may occasionally encounter some human source danger as well. And we're probably deep enough into our content that this will keep surfacing a little bit. You guys will have questions. We can always pause and kind of address some of those concerns. But as massage therapists, we are in a profession that has some special considerations. The public perception of massage therapy is the most overlapped set of confusions with prostitution and sex work of any other industry. That a lot of illegal prostitution operations are hiding behind the idea of massage therapy. They're not generally licensed. I am not aware of a case in Hawaii specifically where there's like large-scale prostitution operation being run by actual licensed massage therapists. It's something that they slap on the door when they're running a generically illegal business. But it does mess with public perception, and it creates some weird questions. You will eventually field jokes that are questionable, if not outright inappropriate. And you will have to kind of get in contact with your own self-advocacy voice to be able to set boundaries with people. The boundaries can completely be, this session is over, I'm charging you, or I'm not charging you, whatever makes you more comfortable, and the door is this way. You can stop any treatment at any time for any reason. So you always have that to fall back on. The possibility of violence in the treatment room is like not something that I want you to carry ongoing anxiety about, because the statistical probability of you dealing with a real violent threat in your place of work is very, very low. But do allow yourself to kind of wonder what you would do and give yourself a little bit of a mental picture to refer to just in case one day. The more that you are physically and emotionally present in your work with your clients, the more alert you will be to possible threats and those signals that somebody's behavior may become unpredictable. Healthy people are not violent. So if you're aware of the level of health and internal stability of your clients, you will generally be able to keep yourself quite safe. However, anybody who struggles to take instructions when they have come to you as a professional, or creates intense resistance to whatever you're trying to do inside of the treatment room, like not in terms of their boundaries, their personal needs and expectations, but in terms of your expectations about how your space is treated, how your body is treated, how you are talked to. These things are going to just give you a little bit of alert, and over time you will become much more comfortable and confident in feeling those possible disruptions and like be able to anticipate and prevent the actual risks. If a person is quickly escalating and you're feeling in danger or potentially threatened, remove yourself from the situation. Don't try to contain it yourself. Ideally, you can ask them to leave if they're not following the instruction to leave your premises. Then you are yourself going to leave the premises and immediately summon the authorities. You have no responsibility or really ability to redirect that outcome beyond that point. And so you just want to get yourself to personal safety and pull in broader society resources to deal with those kinds of people. If you have a situation of any form, sexual harassment, violence, like endangerment, threats of any kind, you do want to make a really careful record, because this is super key for any of the proceedings that may happen later on if you are being accused of inappropriate behavior in your treatment room, or if you're needing to substantiate a case of inappropriate behavior from a client. So even inside of the window where that like initial shock of having to deal with that situation is still going on, if you can make sure to verbalize to somebody else and like either ask for their help jotting down a few notes or jot down a few notes for yourself, it is really astounding how much protection that can later offer for people who go through these things, as infrequent as it is. We can revisit, because it's a much bigger topic to get into, how to exactly identify the little gray areas and fine lines of our own appropriate behavior, how to assess that, and how to like transmit that with clients. So that's a little bit bigger topic. So let's call it a day, and we'll circle back in on that next time. Go ahead and settle into your body. And I want to specifically kind of introduce or reinforce, I know you guys all have some level of experience with this already, well, let's just find our energetic centers. Find that power of the focused sequence of awareness moving through your body as a wave. Release any tension, re-engage with the breath. And I want you to begin a practice that will hopefully become a lifelong capacity, awareness that's built into your body, of recognizing the energetic interlacing in our own space. And in order to create the sense of shielding, the ability to read your own energy, where you're at, what you're shielding toward, simply allow our collective energy to blend a little bit, to just feel each other, be aware of each other in the room. And then in contrast to that, draw yourself into yourself and close off a bubble of space around you to make just your own space. Just withdraw from this shared energetic and take a few breaths practicing that. Staying deeply within your own self, with the information from other people becoming less relevant to you as your internal information turns up. And then open back up so that we're all sitting together in your awareness. Notice any small sounds coming from others in the room. Any sensations of the changing energy. And then just practice this contrast. Being able to tell within yourself when you are connecting with other people and when you are choosing to close back into yourself. And drop back into your own center. Detune the outside world. And turn up your internal information. One more time, practice and rehearse this contrast. Allow yourself to perceive more broadly the space of the room, the people in it, the air currents moving through. And then drop back into yourself. Hold that for another moment. Tune it up even higher. Perhaps with a clarification of visualizing yourself grounded deep into the earth, inside of a column of energy and light between the earth and sky that is all your own. And then release that. Return to the surface of your skin. Allow your breath to return to normal flow. Allow your shoulders to open up and your posture, your spatial engagement to return to natural. Okay. Good job, everybody. That's a kind of funny barrage of material on as we're moving into our professionalism. And we will be back later this week, Thursday, 9 a.m. I'll see you then.
That's crazy. I just ran through every code I've ever needed for customer service to like log